on KTLA back in the day. Anyway, Christy and Joe Horton, 9th anniversary, and Hugh Janus, turning 10.
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brand John never wants to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
John, can it be true? It's Wednesday the 13th. Is that right?
We are halfway through the week and almost halfway through the month, Brad.
Man, how time flies when you're not having fun, right? August 13th, this is the A block, which means we started off right around the top of the hour, a little bit after the news and stuff like that. The reason I mention the date is because a lot of people listen to the show in the future on bjshow.us, which is our video version, bjshow.co, which is the podcast version, or they just find it on the Apple podcast. Who's that thanks to, John? Who reminded us of that? Who's the guy that goaded me into that? What was
a gentleman with whom you have a great relationship and a great memory, and you respect him so much that you remember his name.
I do. What's his name again?
I don't know, Brad. What's his name?
Waldo Zumworski. That's what his name is. Okay, we will just move on then. Okay, that is John Combest, Combest. That is the reason I spell that is because you need to put a John on the front and a .com on the back, so you come up with johncombest.com. John Combest has been doing this for 23 years, never missed one single day. Even, have you ever been really sick and like drug yourself out of bed to do this? Have you ever done that, John?
Are you kidding me? Yeah, I mean, you don't make excuses. You don't brag about it. You put your head down. You do the work. And if you're sick, you puke while you're doing the website.
Did you do it through childbirth and the whole bit and everything like that?
Yeah. I did it through, I mean, to be candid, I did it through 3 delivery rooms sitting there with my laptop. And I did it the day my parents passed. I did it the day I've had major medical things going on. You don't brag about it. You just put your head down and do it.
John, you have a laptop?
Yeah, believe it or not, I don't buy parts from an old-timey computer guy and stand around and fiddle-diddle for an hour talking to him about, remember when Tandy made a great computer? Did you ever hear the quote from the guy from Toshiba? No, I have a laptop.
There'll never be a better computer than the Trash 80. Okay, that is John Combest, and his website includes all this information that he puts on it every single day. Dozens of things. But what we do is we start up the show with this guy right here.
I'm Casey Kasem.
And we start off with...
In third place...
a hot topic locally that only involves Missouri politics because of the involvement of AG Andrew Bailey. And the topic is Sam Page, county executive, and the indictment. Brad, on Friday, you and I discussed a little bit about the indictment of Sam Page, and we also talked about whether or not he would be running for re-election. Now, at the time, we discussed it because State Senator Brian Williams had announced that he was indeed running for county executive. He would be running in the Democratic primary. There will be other candidates for sure in the Democratic primary. But will Sam Page run for re-election? Page's campaign spokesman had a quote in the Post-Dispatch and other outlets essentially minimizing the accomplishments of Senator Williams and pointing out that Sam Page had been on the ballot countywide before and had high name ID and things of that effect. Yesterday, Greg Palermo from Spectrum Local News. Brad, are you familiar with Greg?
I do. I've met him a couple times.
Yeah. So Greg is a veteran newsman, a long career in television news, and now works for Spectrum Local News, does a lot of really good original reporting. He met up with Sam Page. There was a ribbon cutting in Baldwin because there was a nearly $2 million improvement to New Baldwin Road. If the county has one pressing issue, it's definitely sidewalks and repaving on New Baldwin Road. So thankfully Sam Page was there for that ribbon cutting. But for the first time, Sam Page left the door open to reality, which is he may not run for re-election. So the quote from Page was, "I don't believe I've done anything wrong." I need to do a voice in the higher register. "We'll cooperate fully with the investigation, and we'll continue to do the important work of St. Louis County, like being here for this ribbon cutting." That's probably a quote he wishes he could take back. When he asked what his plans were, he said, quote, "We'll make that decision at the end of the year." When pressed if he hadn't decided yet, Page said, "You always keep your options open, but I'll make a formal announcement by the end of the year." So this is a sign, Brad, with all due respect to Sam Page, that he is acknowledging reality. You and I happen to disagree on this, Brad, as we discussed Friday. Sam Page won't be running for re-election. You believe he will. I believe he won't be running for re-election. But other folks have weighed in as well. Jake Kroesen, who writes the Whispering Gallery newsletter that you can get by going to the Missouri Times website. Jake's headline today is Page Under Pressure Plays Coy on 2026. Now, Jake had an interesting take here. And Jake says if Page does run, his best path likely hinges on a divided primary field. A couple more candidates entering could fracture the anti-Page vote just enough to give him a shot. I'd be surprised if Williams' team isn't already working to lock down support and prevent that from happening. Now, here's the money line from Jake. Should the legal cloud lift, don't be shocked if Page frames the indictment as a partisan hit job out of Jefferson City. He's survived plenty before, and regardless of when he decides, he's almost certainly gaming out multiple paths forward. And Jake finishes with the line, counting him out this early would be a mistake. So, a lot of folks with an opinion here, Brad. And the third piece that I'd point to, John Lamping was on Mark Cox's show yesterday morning talking mostly about redistricting. But Cox also asked John Lamping about Sam Page. And John spoke pretty highly. He said he didn't know Brian Williams particularly well. But from what he hears from folks who work closely with Williams is a competent guy, obviously pretty progressive. But the reality is that a Democrat will represent St. Louis County, essentially from here to perpetuity. And Lamping speculates that if you're Sam Page, you're his team, you're probably trying to look for a black candidate to get in the race, right? Because you need to have a Stop Williams candidate. So, Brad, I think you and I just disagree on this. I think Sam Page is an intelligent man. I think he's going to take his money and his attractive wife and disappear quietly and enjoy the rest of his life. He's built, obviously some sort of wealth. He can afford to retire, live a beautiful life. Why does he need the headaches and the hassle and the horse hockey of St. Louis County politics?
Well, I heard a rumor that he was going to go and become the new superintendent in Francis Howell and not work a day and just get $220,000. Have you heard anything about that?
That's a pretty good deal. Like, that's better than spending his days working at the hospital, you know?
Right. What's that? Money for nothing and whatever the rest of that song is. Okay, are we now ready for number 2?
We sure are.
Up a notch to number 2.
Down Highway 44, let's check in with Mornings with Nick Reed on KSGF in Springfield. He had one of your favorite writers, creative people, business people, Seth Dillon. Now, I'm going to pull a Brad Hildebrand and say, Brad, does the name Seth Dillon sound familiar to you?
Yeah, he was on that TV show Gunsmoke. He was the marshal.
He was, yeah. Him and also Matt Dillon.
Right.
But also Seth Dillon is the CEO of one of your favorite outlets, the Babylon Bee. You're a big fan of the Babylon Bee, aren't you, Brett?
I do. I love the Babylon Bee.
So Seth Dillon has become a pretty popular speaker on the circuit route, on the right-wing / conservative speaker route. And he is appearing next week at a Vitae Foundation fundraiser. They're a pro-life group. They're led by the great Cassidy Bowen Anderson down in the Springfield area. And Cass has brought in Seth Dillon. Next Friday, they have a dinner. It's only $75 a person in Springfield, which for a big political event, like to hear somebody on a national level, I think is a pretty good deal. But Brad, one of the highlights is something that you talk about a lot on our show. Seth was asked, hey, tell us a little bit about your political background. And Seth started out by saying, he came of age in the 1990s when Democrats were the cool ones. You had Bill Clinton on Arsenio Hall playing the saxophone, and all the hipsters and all the laid-back cool people were Democrats. And Seth points out that something happened between now and then, probably in the 2000s, where Democrats lost their sense of humor. And he points out how upset people get when they read Babylon Bee stories. And he says the left has gotten to a point where they just can't laugh at themselves. So Seth created an outlet where we as right-wingers can laugh at them. So I think it's an awesome event. If I was in the Springfield area, I would definitely be there. You can find out more information by going to Vitae, that's VITAE, foundation.org. You'll have a menu there. Click on Springfield, and you can see the Seth Dillon event.
I couldn't agree with him more. And I think what you just said about the fact that, like, I still remember some people don't even remember who Arsenio Hall was, but he had a late night talk show. It didn't last long. But that was one of the touchstone moments of Clinton's campaign, where he got on TV. Didn't he wear sunglasses? Didn't he do that too? Didn't he put the sunglasses on?
He did. And you remember why he was asked to be on Arsenio Hall? Because
he wanted to play the saxophone.
Yeah, no, because what happened was he had given an interminable speech at the 1988 convention went on, I believe, if not a full hour, close to an hour.
Yeah.
And the only applause line he had is when he said, in closing.
Yeah, in closing. Everybody went, yay!
And everybody applauded. Yeah, so to redeem himself, he grabbed a saxophone and a pair of sunglasses and went to a predominantly black audience on the Arsenio Hall show. And that became a signature moment for him.
And he was really good on the sax, too.
He really was, wasn't he? It's like
good.
Listening to Hulk Hogan play the bass guitar. You see these celebrities and you forget that they might actually have another transferable or valuable skill.
Well, yeah, that sometimes you have people that that like, I know someone who, and this is sort of interesting, that she's played guitar for 40 years, and she's a drummer, but she will never let anybody watch her. It's sort of weird in the respect that I know some of the family members that have seen her. Nobody outside of her family has ever seen her play guitar or play drums. And they all say, oh, my God, she's so good. And isn't that weird? She won't.
It is. And I identified her sound, Brad, because I heard a fantastic advertisement for Stay Cool. Stay Cool keeps you hot when it's not and not when it's hot. And I heard the bass. I heard a little bit guitar there. And I'm like, that's Brad's friend right there.
No, it's not. Okay, headline on Babylon Bee this morning. Democrat mayors report violent crime down 40% since they redefined violent and crime.
Brad, as you often do, you unwittingly provide a terrific segue to story number one.
Okay, let's move right ahead.
The number one.
Two of your favorite shows on the radio followed the same theme yesterday with a couple different guests. We're talking, of course, about 97.1 FM. We're talking about Mark Cox, the Mark Cox Morning Show. And then we're also talking about Mark Reardon, who, as you know, Brad, is joyfully back on the air.
Yes, back.
But
he's
here's
back.
The subject. The juvenile detention system, the juvenile punishment system, I guess you could say. Brad, I know you listen to these stations a lot. Did you happen to hear either of these guests on the shows yesterday?
I had parts of it, and I heard part of them discussing the point system.
Okay, so the first one, the Mark Cox Show, had St. Charles County Police Chief Kurt Frizz. It's Frizz. I think I'm spelling that, or I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And then Mark Reardon in the afternoon had former St. Louis County Police Chief Tim Fitch on. And Brad, as I understand this, you probably know way more about this than I do. But as I understand it, a law was changed a few years back. I believe it was in the 20-teens somewhere, that redefined juvenile in the state of Missouri. Instead of being 17 and under, or instead of being under 17, it's now under the age of 18. So in other words, you could commit a crime years ago at age 17 and be prosecuted and treated as an adult. And now if you commit that same crime at age 17, you're treated as a juvenile. And moreover, as both Fitch and Frizz explained, they're part of a legal group that has gone to Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey, as well as state legislators, and said that the existing point system, which was put in place in the early days of the pandemic, I believe it was 2021, Fitch said, where essentially it's like getting points on your driver's license. If you have a minor infraction, you might get a point or two. And at a certain point, if you rack up so many points, you face stiffer consequences. Well, this was brought to light by, I guess, the other night, there was a young hoodlum who was in trouble for a shooting or a carjacking, was released, and then a day later carjacked someone else. So the point of Frizz and Fitch is that state lawmakers need to fix this law. And essentially what Frizz called a catch and release system for young juvenile delinquents, young hoodlums. Stop releasing them right away to their parents. And instead of this ridiculous point system, start having a law that has some sort of teeth.
Yeah, I probably know a little bit more about this than I should, which I won't go into that reason. But it's really sort of sad because, like you just said, they changed the law, and now you can be 17 and 364 days. You can commit all sorts of crimes, and you're a juvenile, and chances are, like you said, catch and release. But the minute you turn 18, it's a different ballgame, and a lot of these kids know it. They know that they can get away with that kind of stuff. I don't know. It's a sticky wicket. You don't necessarily, John, I look back at my life and I think to myself, man, did I make some stupid mistakes when I was 16, 17, even 18?
Yeah, but I believe you weren't carjacking anyone 2 days in a row.
No, I was not carjacking any. But see, this is the crazy thing about this is that I guess we've to a certain extent become sort of immune to some of these crimes, it's like carjacking. And the crazy part of it is, I've told this story before, John, and John's going, here he goes again, time number 462. The reason the carjackings are up is it's the law of unintended consequences because it's gotten so hard to steal cars with all the anti-theft things. So how do you steal a car? When somebody's in it, they got their keys in the ignition. Now, the only problem is, every once in a while you hear one of these stories. Have you ever heard these stories like, and I don't mean to laugh at this, but it happens mainly with women, where women get carjacked and they have the key fob that they don't have. They have the keyless car system. You just have the fob and you push the button. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, push to start.
And they keep their key fob in their purse, so they get carjacked and they, take their purse with them as they get carjacked. And the dude drives away, and before too long, the car stops because it no longer senses the key fob. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's almost a bait car type situation.
Yes, exactly.
Now, Brad, it's been more than a year, but you were a bit of an expert on the Kia Boys situation too, Brad, because you could explain in intricate detail, which you don't need to do here, but you could explain in intricate detail how the Kia Boys jimmied their way into cars and stole them.
Well, essentially, they didn't have the what they call the PAT system or the immobilizer system. There was no electronics to it. It was just essentially like old school kind of like key, and if you could break, essentially they were just ripping the key cylinders out and
they were using a USB thing, right, Brad?
Yeah, because that wasn't at first. When I heard this, I thought to myself, are they jumping some electronics with a USB cord? No, it just so happened that the USB, the A side of the USB cord had the perfect match for the little tab that when you tore out the key cylinder, there was like a slotted piece of steel there sticking up, and the USB port the USB cable fit perfectly over that tab and used it to turn the ignition switch. That's what they were doing with it.
When we come back, Brad, and we get ready for It's Time for Brad's Time 3, I have a correction from yesterday, a mea culpa in which Brad Hildebrand was 100% correct and John Combest was 100% incorrect. We should lead with that, Brad, because I think it's important enough to.
That's going to be my top 3, but I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, it's going to. Well, we should either preface the top 3 or do something we've never done before, which is instead of stretching B-Block out through incredible garrulous gibber and nonsense, we actually save a minute so I can give a mea culpa about something I was wrong about.
John, you're always so complimentary of me.
Thank you, Brad.
And John, can I be honest with you?
Yeah, please do.
I need a little therapy this morning because I had a crap day yesterday.
You mean like you were in Crapville working on the KRAP transmitter?
No, I don't even know if I want to talk about this on the air. I got into a little bit of a tiff with one of my clients, and
we should talk about it, Brad. It helps. Why don't we do that in C Block? Because I think you do a very good job of being transparent about what's going on, and I think I can help you sometimes.
Okay, but also I have a short interview in C Block, and the reason I want to get this guy on because I find him fascinating because of what he does, and you may know him, you may not, but I think, we won't go long, I just maybe 3-4 minutes maximum, but I just think it would be sort of a cool interview. And and the irony of the situation is he has a show on another radio station. When I asked him, I thought, oh, this guy's for sure going to say, no way, Jose, I'm on XYZ station. He said, hey, no problem, I can do it. I said, okay, fine, great. So we'll do that in the C Block, okay?
Yeah, Brett, the last time you promised somebody it would last 3 or 4 minutes, it was more like 60 seconds.
Well, more like 20 seconds. Okay.